So historical underpinnings, yesterday we discussed. In that we did with company rule, crown rule. In company rule, Regulating Act of 1773, then Amending Act of 1781, then Pitching Act of 1784, their provisions, Charter Act of 1793. I believe from this we have to do, isn't it? From Charter Act of 1793. See, I believe for every conceptual understanding, everything is present inside the English words. For example, Regulating Act. So, regulations. Charter Act means a chart in which they mentioned the rules and regulations. Like a rule of law, everything is present inside a chart. Charter Act. Charter Act of 1793, 1813, 1833, 1853, these are the charts in which they clearly mentioned about what are the powers of East India Company, what will be the powers of British Crown. What are the powers of East India Company and what will be the powers of British Crown. They clearly mentioned about it. And before that, yesterday's lecture 1 in your app, this is lecture 2. Lecture 1 is present in batches. If you go to Polity, Super 50, September, when you scroll down, there is something called as videos. In videos, lecture 1 is there. From lecture 2 onwards, it will be present in live classes. So, if any video, if it is not live, if any technical problem, sometimes if it will not happen, but if sometimes if live class is not available, then we will record it and we will post in videos. When live class happens, it will be uploaded in live classes icon. So, yesterday's class is present in videos. From today's class, it will be present in live classes. So, Charter Act of 1793. So, they started giving charts in which the powers were being given to the East India Company, the powers were being given to the British Crown, the powers were being taken away from East India Company. So, what are this 1793 Charters Act? It continued trade monopoly of East India Company for another 20 years. They gave chance. Understand here, for another 20 years means they fixed deadline. So, your trade monopoly will come to end by 1813. If I tell you, you can come to class for another 10 days, means 11th day you should not come. In the same way, they fixed a date. They gave a clarity to the East India Company, you will be in India still another 20 years. The trade monopoly of East India Company will be continued till another 20 years. So, this particular thing is going to come to an end by 1813. That is the reason in 1813 again they made another charter. Why? Because 20 years time period has been completed. That is the reason 1793, Number 1, they accepted. They accepted the trade monopoly of East India Company to continue for another 20 years. Same. The main point is, this is the only main point in Charter Act of 1793. The Act established that acquisition of sovereignty by the subjects of the Crown is on behalf of the Crown and not in its own right, which clearly stated that the company's political functions were on behalf of the British government. Means you are having trade monopoly, you are having administrative powers, you are having political powers, political affairs powers. These all powers you will be exercising on behalf of British Crown for another 20 years. So, yes, I am continuing you. That doesn't mean that you are sovereign. It doesn't mean that you are autonomous. It doesn't mean that you are independent. You will be working as a unit of British Crown. You will be working as a unit of British Crown. That too for another 20 years. That is what the important point in Charters Act of, that is the only point. Charters Act of 1793. So, in Charters Act of 1793, they told that another 20 years the trade monopoly of East India Company will be continued. It doesn't mean that you are having sovereignty. It doesn't mean that you are having autonomy. It doesn't mean that you are having independence. You will be working as an unit of Charter Act of 1793. Then Charter Act of 1813. Charter Act of 1813. Then everyone, East India Company is worried now. So, 20 years completed. So, whether British Crown is going to continue the trade monopoly or not, whether they are going to discontinue it or not. Now onwards, the discontinuity of the trade monopoly started. Like this, we have to analyze it. So from 1813 onwards, the trade monopoly of East India Company had been discontinued. The beginning of the discontinuation of the trade monopoly of East India Company started from 1813. 1813. What? Ended the monopoly of East India Company in India. However, the company's monopoly in trade with China and trade in tea with India was kept intact. Again, there is some confusion. So trade with China, that is the wish of British Crown now. Why in India there is trade with China? Trade with China means buying and selling of East India Company of the products of India with China. Buying and selling of products of China from the center point of India by East India Company, that trade will continue. Rest all countries will come to an end. Rest all countries come to an end. That means East India Company cannot do trade with another countries except, whereas tea they can do according to their wish. There is no conditions with respect to tea, but there is a condition with respect to China. You have to continue only with China, not with any other country. So for example, East India Company is selling timber, wood, timber. Up to now they sold it to France, sold it to Netherlands, sold it to America, sold it to another countries, and they got money. 1813, the British is telling that you cannot sell the timber of India to another countries. You cannot sell, example, you cannot sell timber of India to another countries, but you can sell it to China. You can buy from China for East India Company, or you can sell it to China. Trade can be continued with China, and trade with tea is your wish. Means tea you can take from India and you can sell to any other country. You can take from India and you can sell to any other country. So trade with tea and trade with China was continued by East India Company. Rest all were being stopped by British Crown. So in 1793 they gave a hint. Hey, we are going to close. How much you want to earn in this 20 years? So they earned 20 years. After 20 years, they will have a doubt whether the license will be renewed or the license will be removed. Then what they told? No, license is not going to renew. You will be continued with license only with two. One will be with tea, one will be with China. Warning with respect to monopoly end of trade is given in 1793 and end started from 1813. Permission to Christian missionaries. In this way, Charter Act of 1813. Important points. First, Christian missionaries entered into India. Permission to Christian missionaries, legalized evangelization. Sir, before that Christian missionaries were absent? No. Christian missionaries were being present, but legalized version of Christian missionaries or legalized version of evangelization started from 1813. Permissions were being given to Christian missionaries, law, by a charter. From where it is coming? It is coming from British Crown. There was also a provision that company should invest rupees 1 lakh every year on the education of Indian. East Indian British Crown told, you East India Company, you enjoyed a lot up to now. You have to give something back. Now onwards, you have to invest rupees 1 lakh per year on education of Indians. So the money which you got, now East India Company as a corporate firm, as a corporate social responsibility. If you are writing about any question on corporate social responsibility is present in British Indian time also. In 1813, the British Crown had ordered East India Company to spend rupees 1 lakh on education of Indians. Corporate social responsibility. So corporate social responsibility is not present in India from 2002 Companies Act. It is present since Charter Act of 1813, right? You have to link it. When you link, you will get more marks. Take my word. Now only you have to master how to link. From every topic, one or the other point you will be getting from my side to link it. So any question on corporate social responsibility, any question on responsibility of corporates, any question on responsibility of private companies, yes or no? Any question on responsibility of corporate companies. The responsibility of corporate companies is not new to India. It is present in British Indian times only. Charter Act of 1813 discussed about corporate social responsibility by ordering East India Company to spend rupees 1 lakh every year on education on India. The Charter Act of 1813 required the company to maintain its territorial and commercial accounts separately. By this act, the company was put under greater control of the British Crown but could retain its hold on the details of administration and Indian revenues. Means complete accounts should be submitted to the British Crown. So, 4 major points are there in the Charter Act of 1813. Number 1, Christian missionaries, legalization of Christian missionaries into India. Leased life of 20 more years, means 1813 to 1833. 1813 to 1833, they told that you East India Company, the trade with China can be continued for another 20 years. You can continue the trade with tea for another 20 years. So, lease continued for another 20 years. Monopoly gone, China except tea. Monopoly continued, monopoly gone everywhere except tea and China. Monopoly gone in all the activities except tea and China. Promote education, local bodies were allowed to tax, promote education. Promote education, 1 lakh rupees you have to pay, 1 lakh rupees you have to pay and allow for local tax which will be used for education purpose. Which act is it? Major important. See, we will forget, we will confuse a lot. Again we will repeat. Regulating Act of 1773, points. How many points were 6 points were been there. First one, Governor of Bengal became Governor General of Bengal. Next, Governor of Bombay and Governor of Madras became subordinate to Governor General of Bengal. Next, Executive Council of 4 members. Next, Supreme Court will be established. Next, corruption. They ordered corruption is increasing, corruption should be stopped. Next, last, Court of Directors. Court of Directors is a first step towards centralization. First step towards, yes or no? Before that, British Crown didn't came. British Crown came means what? First step towards centralization. First step towards control. First step towards centralization. Which act? 1773 Regulating Act. Next, Amending Act. Mainly to solve the conflict between Supreme Court and Governor General and Council. That is the only thing. Next, Pitts India Act. How many are there? How many points are there? 4. Number 1, double governance. Court of Directors and Board of Control. Second, Board of Control with respect to politicals and Court of Directors with commercial. Next, British possessions. What? Complete the sentence. Revenue and civil under the control of Board of Control. Very good. Only commercial with Court of Directors. One more point. Pitts India Act. Pitts India Act. Don't by heart. Just understand one by one. British possessions in India. Very good. This is Pitts India Act of 1784. Then Charter Act. 1793 Charter Act. What is 1793 Charter Act? Trade monopoly is going to come to an end within 20 years. That is the main point. The trade monopoly, they gave a warning. That's it. Then 1813, the trade monopoly stopped except with China and tea. Number 1. Number 2, Christian missionaries legalized. Third, education. 1 lakh rupees need to be paid by the East India Company for Indians. Next, legalized. The license is prolonged for another 20 years. Next, Charter Act of 1833. Charter Act of 1833. 1773, 1781, 1784, 1793, 1813, 1833 now. Saint Helena Act. She is queen. Her name is called as Helena. Saint Helena. Charter Act of 1833 she gave. The charter is given by her. Charter Act of 1833 or Saint Helena Act or Government of India Act of 1833 was passed by the British Parliament. The laws made under, this is very, very important. Passed by whom? British Parliament. After passing from the British Parliament, Helena herself told that up to now, all were being released by the Crown. Now onwards, it should not be released by the Crown. Now the legislations or regulations which are going to come should come from Parliament. Through a parliamentary procedure. That means what? From 1833, these all are called as legislations. Before 1833, these all are regulations. 1773, 1781, 1784, 1793, 1813. These all are regulations, means government orders. GO, we will tell now GO, like GO it came. Government orders it came. Executive resolutions, these all are. But from 1833, it is coming from the parliament, so it is called as law. Law. Kanun. Chattam. There is a parliamentary procedure. The government is called as executive. The law-making bodies are called as legislatures. Government is called as executive, which is called as Council of Ministers headed by Prime Minister, or Council of Minister headed by Chief Minister is called as executive. Legislature. Law-making bodies, chattam chesevallu. Law-making bodies are called as legislatures. So that legislatures are called as parliament. Executive is called as government. So till 1833, the laws, means like laws which came, were being given by the crown. But from 1833 onwards, the laws are coming from a parliamentary procedure. Means what? In parliament they are discussing, in parliament they are passing through a vote, and it is becoming a law. So in the British Parliament, a law was being passed. In the House of Elders and in the House of People. In the lower house and in the upper house. Two houses are there in British Parliament. One is People's Representative, another is House of Elders, which is called as House of Lords. Two houses. So it is passed in the Parliament and it became a act. Who gave permission for that? Helena gave the permission. Helena told, now onwards monopoly, I will not give the orders. Let it go through the democratic procedure. Let it go through the parliamentary procedure. So it went to the parliamentary procedure and a law was been. So 1833 onwards, these all are laws, acts. 1833 onwards, these all are acts. 1833 onwards, these all are laws. Why? Because prelims point of view. From which year the resolution passed by the British is called as laws? 1833. Before 1833, the resolution passed by the British Crown are called as regulations. Are called as regulations. From 1833 onwards, these are law, legal basing. Why? Because it is passed through Parliament. So, in Indian context, any bill, before parliamentary procedure, it is called as bill. After parliamentary procedure, passing from Lok Sabha, passing from Rajya Sabha and signed by President, then it is called as act. Before becoming an act, it is called as bill. After passing through the parliamentary procedure, it is called as act. This particular procedure is called as legislative procedure. This particular procedure is called as legislative procedure. Who are passing are called as legislatures. Who are passing is called as legislatures. Act is also called as law. Act is also called as law. Bill is called as bill. Only one name, bill. So before parliamentary procedure, it is bill. Parliamentary procedure successfully completed, law or act. What is parliamentary procedure? Means passing through the houses which are present in the parliament and countersigned by president is called as parliamentary procedure. Those parliamentarians are called as legislatures. Those parliamentarians is called as legislature. This is terminology which we use normally. You will, by regular classes, by interaction, by reading, you will come across it and it will be imbibed in you. Coming to the topic. So before 1833, the laws which are made by the British to control India are called as regulations. From 1833, the laws which are made by the British to control East India Company and India is called as acts. Why? Because from 1833 onwards, it got scrutinized by British Parliament. From 1833 onwards, it got passed through the British legislature. The laws made under previous acts were legislation. Well, laws made under this act were called as acts. Called as acts. Very, very important. Before 1833 regulations, after 1833 acts. Legislations. Company surrendered all its monopolies, 1833. Company surrendered all its monopolies as a trading corporation including China trade. East India Company did not abolish. I surrendered everything. I surrendered everything to British Crown. Understand this. Private firm became public sector firm. In 1969, what happened? All the private banks became public sector banks. In 1969, what happened? All the private banks became public sector banks, which is called as nationalization. Same here, 1833. The monopolies of the East India Company came to an end, but East India Company did not abolish it. East India Company is present, but now the East India Company is not called as private organization, but now it is called as public organization. Nationalized. Now East India Company is adopted by British Crown. Now East India Company is usurped by British Crown. So now onwards it is the organ of British Crown. So it's a public body of British. It is a public body of British. 1833. The monopoly of East India Company is taken away by the British Crown, including tea and China. But East India Company did not got abolished. Remember this. Why? Because East India Company completely abolished from 1858. East India Company completely abolished from 1858. Here, the private East India Company became now public. All the servants are there, all the people are there, everyone is there, just there is a transfer of power. There is just a transfer of authority from public authority, private authority to public authority. So where the publicization or nationalization of East India Company happened, in which act? 1833. When the East India Company became public body, 1833. It didn't got removed, it didn't got abolished, it is present, but as a public body. British body. Company surrendered all its monopolies as a trading corporation, including China trade and tea, to whom? British. From commercial body, the company purely changed into administrative body. So now, RTC is administrative body. Railways is administrative body. Whether it will work for commercial entity, it will work for welfare of the people. Why? Because it's a public body. It is under the control of government. So now commercial body of East India Company became administrative body of East India. That is the reason BSNL collapsed. Why BSNL collapsed? I work or don't work, they will pay me the salary. Why? Because now BSNL is not part of commercial, but BSNL is part of administration. Yes, the commercials will come down, the profits will come down. Why? Because no one will bother about commercial. What happened to MTNL, what happened to BSNL, the same thing will be repeated. The same thing also happened to East India Company. So now onwards we are calling East India Company as not a commercial entity but a administrative entity. From which act onwards East India Company became totally administrative entity but not commercial entity? 1833. Why? Because it became public. It became British body. The Charter Act of 1833 legalized the British colonization of India, means now it told. So now onwards, what are all the colonies present in India? The territories of India are the territories of British Crown but not of East India Company. Up to now, the territories of India are called as the territories of East India Company. From 1833 onwards, the territories of East India Company will be called as the territories of British. Why? Because East India Company itself is British now. Now East India Company itself is British, a public body, British public body. India's first law commission, Macaulay Commission, codified laws, was set up under Charter Act of 1833. Lord Macaulay was named as its chairman. First law commission in India, means legalization of laws. A proper codified law came into existence by the first law commission, which is chaired by Lord Macaulay. So the first law commission of India, in order to codify the law, the first law commission of India, in order to codify the law. Now what? Either no clear. Some are being made by Executive Council of Governor General, some are made by Supreme Court, some are directly coming from British Crown. Confused. So now an exclusive, a codified law, a book. One codified law will be coming out, and that codified law will be made by Law Commission, and the chairman of the Law Commission is Macaulay. This is the first law commission in India. This is the first step for codification of law in. Obviously, law is very important. So you tell me with your common sense, in this law commission, any Indian will be there or all Britishers will be there? All Britishers will be there. Why? Because I want the law according to my wish. So there is no chance that Indian will be becoming the member of law commission. From 1833, the Governor General of Bengal is called as Governor General of India, with civil and military powers of entire British India. First Governor General is Lord William Benedict. Governor of Bengal became Governor General of Bengal. Which act? 1773 Regulating Act. Fact only, important fact. Governor General of Bengal became Governor General of India by which act? 1833. Now, civil administration and military administration, both civil administration and military administration, in this civil, East India Company commercial is also part of this. East India Company commercial entity also became now British Crown. So that is coming under the civil powers of Governor General of India. So East India Company, the civil activities of India and the military activities of India, all are under the control of Governor General of India. Civil, military, in civil itself, the commercial entities of East India Company is part of civil. Governor General of Bengal became Governor General of India in 1833. The first such person is, then who is the first Governor General of Bengal? Warren Hastings. First Governor General of Bengal is Warren Hastings. First Governor General of India is William Benedict. Legislative powers were denied to, very important. Legislative powers were denied already. Two presidencies are present. One is Bombay Presidency, other is Madras Presidency. If any law making powers, legislative powers means chattam chese powers, law making powers, कानून बनाने का power, the legislative powers were denied to governors of Madras, governors of Mumbai, and Governor General of India was given exclusive legislative powers. Means now the Governor General of India, not Bengal, the Governor General of India is having the power to make laws across. Governor General of India is having the powers to make the laws across India. Up to now, who made the laws? British Crown. British Crown. Now what happened? British Crown told that now complete East India Company is under the control of British Crown. Now we can also make laws in India. So I will be making one person as Governor General of India and he will be making the laws. Decentralization. Decentralization or centralization? If from British, centralization. Locally, if we make, Governor General of India is living in India or living in Britain? Living in India. Governor General of India will live in India. First step towards decentralization. Means the centralization has been completed now. Now everything is under the control of British Crown. Legislative powers means law making powers are vested with Governor General of India but not with governors of Bombay and Madras. So everything is under the control of Governor General of India, law making. So up to now the laws which are made from the Britain, now the laws can be made in India also, but by whom? Governor General of India. Not to the governors, but to the Governor General of yours. Attempted, not successfully completed, attempted for open competition for civil service, but negated after opposition from Court of Directors. This Governor General of India, William Benedict, tried with the help of Lord Macaulay. We will keep a open competition. Why we have to recruit from Britain? Anyhow, the law making power is with Governor General of India. Let the officers also recruited from India only. We will have an open competition. They attempted, but Court of Directors did not allow. Why? Because Court of Directors, commercial people, they will be having influence. No, you took all powers, let the officers continue, our own officers will continue as officers of British. For open competition for civil services, attempt was made in which year? 1833. Not completed. Attempted. Regulating Act, first step of centralization in India. Charter Act, final step of centralization. Yes or no? Why? Final step of centralization. Everything came under the British, and now in India, Governor General of India is making the laws. So first step of centralization is 1773. Last step of centralization is Governor General of Bengal became Governor General of India. GGB became Jujubi. GGB, GGI. Governor General of India power increased. Why? Because he is making the laws. He is making the laws. Whereas Governor of Bombay and Governor of Madras is not making any laws. So he is powerful. Fourth member, another presidency also came into existence. Up to now, Bengal. Why? Because now it became India. But for Bengal, a presidency. Madras, Bombay, Agra. Fourth presidency came into existence. By which act? 1833. Idea of open competition. Idea of open competition. Idea only. Not implementation. Codification of law. Macaulay Committee. 1833. Codification of law. First law commission was been established by 1833. Monopoly gone. East India Company reduced to administrative body. She is Helena. So, monopoly gone. But East India Company didn't gone. Monopoly gone. Now, East India Company became purely a government body. Purely a administrative body. Centralization. Why? Everything is under the control of British now. No East India Company. Centralization. Madras and Bombay presidency legislative powers were being taken away and the legislation making powers are vested with Governor General. With Jujubi it is there. So first 1833. First point, GGB became GGI. Next. Agra added. Very good. Agra added. Next. Laws. Codification of laws by Macaulay Committee because of Charter Act of 1833. Next. Monopoly gone. Monopoly gone, it became a public body, administrative body. Next. Attempted for civil services. Open competition for civil services. Next. Governor of Bombay, Governor of Madras doesn't have powers to make the law. Next. Last step of centralization. 1833, last step of centralization. Compulsory one question will be there from 1773 to 1947. And one question will be there on 1950, which is salient provisions of constitution. One question will be there, application of constitution. 3 questions are damn sure. People will think by reading Lakshmikant, compulsory they are confident in polity. The biggest problem with polity is negative marking. Confusion will be there in polity. You ask any random ranker or any senior where you are going to get the negative marking means only 2 subjects. One is polity, other is economics. Economics also very, very near, somewhere around. That is negative marking only. Polity and economy we should be reading very clearly. History you have to remember. Geography concept. Why? Because technical subject. Geography is concept. If you know the concept, you can remember. History is remembering. Polity and economy is confusion. Why? Because very near. 1773, 1781, 1784, 1793, 1813, 1833. 1853. Charter Act of 1853. Charter Act of 93, 13, 33, 53. Last Charter Act. Last Charter Act marks the beginning of parliamentary system. Means parliament like body is established in India for the first time. Not India, British India. Parliament like body established in British India. So parliament like body established in British India means a parliamentary form of system came into existence by the act of beginning of parliamentary system in India because of the key feature of legislative council was clearly distinguished from the executive council. If you remember, Governor General, Executive Council, 4 members, it is continuing parallelly. Came into existence from 1773. It is existing parallelly. By the time it reached 1853, what a Charter Act of 1853 did means, so you are Governor General of India, you are having Executive Council now, what we will do? We will divide into 2. We will divide into 2. One will be called as Legislative Council, other will be called as Executive Council. This Legislative Council will be making the laws, this Executive Council will be implementing the laws. Today also we have the same system in India. Parliament will be making the laws, executive will be implementing the laws. That is the uniqueness of parliamentary form of system. That system came into existence from 1853 only, whereby the Governor General of India Executive Council is divided. Not a new body. Not a new body. Already existing Executive Council of Governor General of India became two, divided into two. One body became the Legislative Council, other body became Executive. Separated legislative and executive functions of Governor General's Executive Council. Very important. Legislative Council means new body didn't came into existence. Already Governor General's Executive Council which was being presented, it divided into two. First point, very important point. Because of this we tell that parliamentary system of government came into existence, or parliamentary system came into India by which act? 1856. The same we are following today. The same we are following today. If there is any question on MEIS, write about the parliamentary system in India. The parliamentary system in India historically started by 1853 Government of India. First sentence, historically you are coming, oh, this person read a lot. Established separate Governor General's councils known as Indian Legislative Council, which functioned as mini parliament in this. It became separate. It became separate, which is called as mini parliament. This is from it divided, no, it became independent. It got divided, no, that became independent. Now it is called as mini parliament. What is the function of parliament? Making laws. So the laws will be made by the legislative body of Governor General. Legislative body of Governor General. That legislative body is law making body. Means today how we can compare Lok Sabha, legislative body, Council of Ministers headed by Prime Minister, executive body, Governor General, President. But what is the difference? President now is just ex officio. Just ex officio. At the time he is de facto, he is having the power. That is the difference. Covenanted civil services were thrown open to Indians also in accordance with Macaulay Committee appointed in 1854. Another Macaulay Committee came into existence. See, another Macaulay Committee means first Macaulay Committee is Law Commission. This Macaulay Commission is for civil services. So Macaulay is famous for two commissions. One commission for law by 1833, another commission for civil services by 1853. So this commission recommended that now onwards there will be open competition in India, and in that open competition also Indian can participate. Indian can participate. He extended the company's rule. Extended the company's rule. Company did not got abolished. I told you company got abolished in 1858. Company is continuing as public body. British public body, as British body. No more a corporate entity, no more a commercial entity, as administrative body. Extended the company's rule, but did not specify particular period like previous charters, intimating an end of company's rule anytime. They extended. I am extending company's rule, but they didn't give any clarity. Like 1793 they gave clarity 20 years, 1813 they gave clarity 20 years, 1833 also they gave clarity another 20 years. But in 1853 East India Company, at least I am having some job, it will be for another 20 years. They didn't give any time. It means that any time the East India Company can be abolished. So no time period is mentioned with respect to extension of companies, acts, companies, administrative bodies, companies, body. So it will be continued without any deadline. So it can continue for 100 years or it can continue for 6 months also. When date is not mentioned, it can continue for another 100 years or it can continue for another 6 months also. No date was mentioned, but up to now the date was been mentioned. 1793, 1813, 20 years, but after 1853, no, 20 years. From 1853, the revenues of India were controlled by British Parliament. Revenue, the money which is coming as an administrative body, East India Company which is collecting, now it is under the control of British Parliament. means how much money you are getting, how you are spending money. The revenues which were under the control of East India Company as administrative body, but that also now under the control of British Parliament. That means what they are doing, they are keeping smoke. Whether you will go or I should throw you out. East India Company understood. These are all the steps for removal of introduced local representation in Indian legislation. Introduced, but not happened. Introduced local representation in legislative councils. Locals will be introduced, means Indians. Introduced local representations in legislative councils, means in law-making bodies, the locals will be introduced by 1853. Out of 6 new members, 4 were to be appointed by provincial governments of Madras, Mumbai, Bengal and Agra. 2 will be appointed by British. Overall 6 new members will be added to the Legislative Council. From every province, one member will be appointed. They told Indians can be appointed, but they appointed officials only. From 4 presidencies, Madras, Mumbai, Bengal and Agra. No more Bengal. Now Bengal is called as India. Overall India. There is, for example, Delhi. For Delhi government is also there now. Union government is located in Delhi and state government is also located in Delhi. So Bengal is, Kolkata is a center, as well as Bengal is also a province, a presidency. Legislative functions are separated, executive functions are separated. Administrative functions are executive functions. Who is the head of both? Governor General of India. Governor General of India Executive Council is divided into 2, Legislative Council and Executive Council. And who is the head of both? Governor General of India. A separate Governor General Legislative Council, that Legislative Council is called as Central Legislative Council, which will be acting like mini parliament. 6 new members will be added, 4 from 4 presidencies, 2 from British. They told that Indians will be, local people will be appointed to the Legislative Council, but didn't happen. Function as mini parliament. Same procedure, how the British Parliament is functioning, in the same way the mini parliament will be functioning from now on. That is the reason we tell that the parliamentary system came into existence by provisions of 1853. Number one. See, understand. Executive Council of Governor General is divided into 2. Same is divided into 2. One is called as legislative body or legislative council, proper words we will use, legislative council. Other is called as executive council. This legislative council is also called as central legislative council. This is called as central executive council. So this legislative council is acting like an independent body. This central legislative council will be acting like an independent body, which is functioning like mini parliament, which will be functioning like British Parliament. So any law need to be made will be made in Central Legislative Council, but signed by Governor General. Implementation is executive. Implementation by Executive Council. The duty of Executive Council is only implementing the laws made by, but will be countersigned by Governor General. Will be countersigned by Governor General of Indians will be added. There is a proposal for introduction of Indians into Legislative Council. So 6 new members were being taken into legislative councils. 4 members from Bengal, Madras, Mumbai, Agra. But again officers were being taken. Who are officers? Britishers. And 2 members directly from British. That is Central Legislative Council. Macaulay Commission was being constituted to study about civil services. And that Macaulay Commission recommended for open competition, whereby Indians also will be participating. First, Legislative Council, mini parliament, civil services. Companies rule will be extended without any deadline. That means that in near future it is going to come to an end. Introduced local representation, but not happened in reality. 6 new members for Central Legislative Councils, 4 will be from 4 presidencies and 2 are from British directly. So this is 1858. So important point of 1853 is parliamentary system. For example, if you have a question, there is a proposal for removal of parliamentary system and approving for presidential system. What is your opinion? So when you are writing about parliamentary system, the parliamentary system is not new to in India. It is present since 1853. In British time itself, we got habituated to parliamentary system. It is present in Indian Charters Act of 1853. Any answer, mainly 20 markers, essays, if you write historically, evolutionary wise, a person, whoever is reading, he will understand. So it should be an evolutionary pattern. If not, you can write some anecdote you can write, or some other, that is different. But if it is historical, it will be good. Corruption, we have historical evidence. Parliamentary system, we have historical evidence. Communal violence, 1909, because of communal electorate, I will discuss. So, 1773 Regulating Act, Amending Act of 1781, Pitch India Act of 1784, 1793 Charter Act, 1813 Charter Act, 1833 Charter Act, 1853 Sipai Mutiny. In 1857, the first war of independence. The soldiers of British Empire revolted against the British Empire. Not white men, brown men. The soldiers of British Empire, the Sipais of British Empire, they waged war against the British Empire, the Sipai Mutiny. Then the British got shocked there. So the people in India are unsatisfied with the functioning of East India Company as an administrative body. Who is administering? East India Company is administering. Who is administering? The grassroots level. Who is the collector? East India Company officer. Administering body means who is a collector? No, he will be administering. So the collector is a East India Company person who is administrative body now. The people are dissatisfied. The people are dissatisfied. That is the reason there is a war on Britain. War on Britain is a shame, no? A big empire, the powerful empire, eminent power. A small India is waging war on British Empire, where all the countries, British, Africa, everyone is silent. Asian countries are silent. Australia is silent. India only waging war against British. They felt it like a shame on British Empire. That is the reason. Very immediately they responded and came up with 1858 Government of India, and they came up with a word called as good governance, responsible government. We will be providing you responsible government, please. Like sometimes when revolt happened, then the minister will come. You don't worry, I am there with you. You don't fight. Now onwards there will be a responsible government. Now onwards there will be good governance. Please don't fight. We are for you. The crown rule, complete. You East India Company, because of you, we became fools in front of the world. People are laughing at us. France is laughing at us. Netherlands is laughing at us. United States of America is laughing at us. A small country, India, is waging war on Britain. It is because of you, East India Company, and your administrators. Remove all these members. Then the East India Company abolished. So they don't have an opinion till 1857 to remove the East India Company. Why? Because they are the ready-made officers. They are the ready-made officers. They know the topography of India. Now if I recruit new people, they don't know. For adjustment itself, it will take 2-3 years. So they are ready-made officers. Now let them continue. Then because of the Sipai Mutiny, they understood it is because of East India Company, completely abolished East India Company, completely new recruitment happened in 1858. And for that they came up with a new law which is called as 1858 Government of India. Like complete management changed. Complete management changed. So the management is shifted from East India Company administrative body into British, directly ruled by the representatives of the British. Officers of the British, directly recruited by the British, they will be ruling India now. There is no intermediary body. East India Company is a intermediary body, like outsourced body. It's an outsourcing. The best example of outsourcing is East India Company. From 1773 to 1858, the outsourcing. So India is not new to outsourcing. India is not new to contracts. India is not new to contract labours. From 1773 to 1858, we were being ruled by contract labours. Who are the contract labours? East India Company. Then from 1858 onwards, directly ruled by the officers of Britain. Crown rule. I am going to take the charge. The crown is going to take the charge on Indian possessions. The crown is going to charge on Indian possessions. 1858. The crown rule abolished East India Company. Complete abolition of East India Company. No more East India Company. No more corporate. Everything is administration now. No more commercial entity. Only we will collect the revenue. Government of India, officially called as Government of India Act of 1858. Act for the good government of India. Act for good government of India. And the slogan is responsible government. India was to govern on the name of majesty. Governor General of India turned as Viceroy of India. And Viceroy, direct representative of British Crown in India, is Viceroy. What is the English meaning of Viceroy? The English meaning of Viceroy is the highest representative agent. Highest agent of any country is called as Viceroy. So 1858, the Governor General of India became Viceroy of India. 1773, Governor of Bengal became Governor General of Bengal. 1833, Governor General of Bengal became Governor General of India. 1858, Governor General of India became Viceroy of India. And he is a direct representative agent of British Crown. But up to now, Governor of Bengal, Governor General of Bengal, Governor General of India, all are East India Company officers. All are East India Company officers. But Viceroy is directly recruited by British. Crown was empowered to appoint a Governor General and Governors of Presidencies. Governor Generals and Governors of Presidencies. If big presidency, there will be a Governor General. Small presidency, there will be a Governor. Abolished Court of Directors and Board of Control, ending up the double government. No more Board of Control, no more Court of Directors. Everything will be directly under the control of British Crown. So one extra officer will be recruited. His name is called as Secretary of State. Secretary of State, he will be present in Britain only. Secretary of State will be present in Britain only, but he will be looking into the affairs of India. What is happening in India? So he will be directly representing to the Parliament. So a Secretary of State who will be having the information with respect to commercials, revenue, civil, military, police, all information will be collected by India by the Secretary of State, and he will be giving the information to the British Parliament. Created Secretary of State. Authority over Indian administration. He will not stay in India. He will just collect the information and he will be pumping information to the British Parliament. 15-member council to assist the Secretary of State. He will be having 15 members. This 15 members will present in India. One person civil, another person military, another person police, another person revenue. Like this, 15 persons are given with 15 responsibilities. They will make a call. They will message him. So, these 15 members will be the loyal people of Secretary of State. And the Secretary of State will be responsible to the British Parliament. This is another body which British want to know what is happening in India. So they kept a separate officer called as Secretary of State. They know if this Secretary of State is working in India, they will make him corrupted. They will give some gifts and they will do some matlab. So they told him, you have to stay in British. Indian Civil Services was to be created under the control of Secretary of State, ICS officer. Indian Civil Services will be created under the control of, so he will be the person who will be recruiting the Indian Civil Services officers. Act of 1858 confined to improvement of administrative machinery in India. So main thing is the people are unsatisfied or dissatisfied because of administration which is happening in India. So 1858 mainly talks about administrative machinery, reforming administrative machinery in India. Reforming administrative machinery in India. Good government, good governance, responsible government, Secretary of State, Indian Civil Service officers will be authorized or will be under the control of Secretary of State. For Secretary of State, 15-member body will be there who will be giving the information to the Secretary of State. He will be directly responsible to the British Parliament. British Governor General of India will be renamed as Viceroy of India. Viceroy of India will be staying in India, Secretary of State will be living in Britain. So the main function of 1858 Government of India is with respect to administrative reforms, so that the people will be getting the confidence on British India, so that there will be no another war, so that there will be no another Sipai mutiny type of war. 1858 Government of India. Next we will have Indian Councils Act, 1861, 1892, 1909. Indian Councils Act. What is this Indian Councils Act? Charter Act means removal of the powers of East India Company will be named as Charters Act. Removal of the powers of East India Company will be named as Charters Act. Indian Councils Act means addition of Indians to mini parliament. Addition of Indians to central legislative councils are called as Councils Act. Why? Because they are adding to Indian Councils Act. 1861, 1892, 1909 means what? Indians are added to council. Indians are added to councils. Indians are added to council. So it is called as Indian Councils Act. That understanding, the title is everything. So if any question on prelims, first understanding is, oh, somewhere one point will be there where Indians will be added to the councils. 1853 attempted but didn't happen. 1858 they didn't talk about councils. Why? Because they are busy in reforming administration. Indian Councils Act of 1861, Indian Councils Act of 1892, Indian Councils Act of 1909. Passed to associate Indians in administration of India. It is passed to associate Indians into administration of India. So Indians will be part of administration. Indians will be part of councils. Means what? They will be into Indian civil services. They will be also into legislative councils. But higher importance into legislative council, law-making body. Indian Councils Act of 1861 transformed the Viceroy's Executive Council into mini cabinet, run on the portfolio system. Very, very important. For the first time, the portfolio system came into existence. Portfolio system means now onwards proper demarcation. Agriculture Minister, Revenue Minister or Finance Minister or Home Minister or External Affairs Minister, portfolios are given to the Executive Council. Now haphazard, confusion. So now what they did in 1861 by the Indian Councils Act, the Executive Council which is already existing now will work as mini cabinet. In cabinet who will be there? Council of Ministers will be there. So in that cabinet every Executive Council member will be given a portfolio. One will be Home Minister, another will be Finance Minister, another will be etc, etc, etc. So portfolio system came into existence by which act? Indian Councils Act of 1861. Mini cabinet form of system came into existence by which act? Indian Councils Act. Mini parliament form of parliamentary system came into existence by 1853. 1853. 1853 mini parliament, 1861 mini cabinet. Features. So beginning, representative institutions, now onwards, up to now all are officers, all are nominated, all are appointed, no local representation. Local people, you are administering the local people without local representative. So representative system started by 1861. Local representations added by 1861. Beginning of representative institutions by associating Indians with the law-making process, which led to nomination of some Indians as non-official members of his expanded council. In the expanded council of Central Legislative Council, not by election. Election is not used. It's very premature if I use the word election, not election. Nominations only. But local nomination. Who is locals? Indians. Indian means what? Non-official, no. Britisher means official. Officer will be recruited. So whenever I am nominating Indian means it is a non-official member. So non-official member started becoming part of legislative councils. Non-official members becoming part of legislative councils means it is becoming a representative body. Why it is called as representative body? Because local people's representative is going to present. Who is locals? Indians. So Indian is becoming part of legislative council. Who is Indian? Non-official. It is also called as non-official members. Non-official members, Indian, local representative is becoming part of council. Is becoming part of councils. Number 1. Lord Canning, first Viceroy, nominated 3 Indians, Raja of Banaras, the Maharaja of Patiala, and Sir Dinakar Rao. 3 members were being nominated to the legislative councils. Who? Lord Canning. In 1858 also he is the first Viceroy. The first Viceroy is Lord Canning. Lord Canning is also called as father of portfolio system. He created portfolio system. Today we are having now Ministry of Agriculture, Ministry of Finance, Ministry of Defence. This type of portfolio systems came into existence from 1861, and who created it means Lord Canning created. So Lord Canning is called as father of portfolio system. Initiated decentralization process by restoring legislative powers to Bombay and Madras. Again, Bombay and Madras legislative powers were being removed by which act? Only Governor General of India is having the power to make the, only the Bengal is having the powers to make the laws, not Bombay and Madras. By which act? 1833. 1833. So, Ardhan Kalam. Which year? Which act? 1773. Indian Councils Act of 1861. Initiated decentralization. Means what? By restoring legislative powers to Bombay and Madras. 1833, the law-making powers of Bombay and Madras were being removed and restored only with Bengal. Now what I did in 1861, again I gave powers to Bombay and Madras. A Bombay, you can make your own laws. You Madras, you can make your own decentralization. Decentralization. I am giving legislative powers to the Bombay and Madras to make laws. The first step towards decentralization. Why? Because law-making bodies means what? Legislative councils are coming for Bombay, legislative councils are coming for Madras. Initiated decentralization process by restoring legislative powers to Bombay and Madras. So you local presidencies can make your own laws, which were been removed and given only to the Bengal. Now again it is restored to Madras and 1861. Why? Representations. Representation started. Indians are taken into legislative councils. Non-official members are taken into legislative councils. In that process, law-making also should be decentralized. So the law-making also decentralized to Bombay Presidency and Madras Presidency, 1861. That is the reason, the first step towards decentralization. Establishment of new legislative councils for Bengal, Northwest Frontier Province, Punjab, Legislative Council, decentralization. Recognized portfolio system introduced by Lord Canning. Portfolio system. Empowered Viceroy to issue, very, very important, this yellow color. Empowered Viceroy to issue ordinance, which will be valid for 6 months without concurrence of Legislative Council during emergency. Today's ordinance, which is vested with Governor, which is vested with the President, where it started? Indian Councils Act. Where it started? Indian Councils Act of 1861. The Governor General of India, the Viceroy is having the power to issue ordinance, but only in emergency situation. I will tell you, listen. We will discuss in detail later. For time being, under Article 123 of the Constitution, President is having the power to issue ordinance. Under Article 213 of the Constitution, Governor is having the power to issue ordinance. What is this ordinance? When the Parliament is not in session, when the Parliament is in recess, means when the Parliament is not at all in session, but it's compulsory that a law need to be passed. It's compulsory that a law need to be passed. In that emergency situation, I cannot call the parliament to form a session. Why? Because people should come. It takes time. But the law should come very immediately. Why? Because it's an emergency situation. In that emergency situation, the governor in the state and the president at the center will be having exclusive powers to give ordinance. To give ordinance, which is equal to a legislative law. Which is equal to a legislative law. In order to pursue that purpose. In order to pursue that purpose. Again, when the parliament is in session, within 6 weeks, that ordinance need to be kept in the Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha or in the legislative assembly of the state, it need to be passed. If not, that ordinance will become null and void. That is called as ordinance. That mechanism of ordinance which is there today with our governor and with our president, it is present in the history, or it started from when? Indian Councils of 1861. It started from Indian Councils of 1861, whereby the Viceroy will be having the power. The Viceroy will be having the power to issue ordinance without congruence of. Why? Because who can make a law? Legislative Council can make a law. Without the congruence of Legislative Council also, Viceroy can make a law which will be life for 6 months. So, when compulsory expected, this time also one question came, ordinance. GS2. Next week we will discuss GS2 questions of 2022 paper. That ordinance, the birthplace is Indian Councils Act of 1861. That controversial ordinance, every time some or the other issue will be there with ordinance. Where its birth happened? Indian Councils Act of 1861. If there is a question on governor's ordinance power, first paragraph, introduction. The ordinance concept is not of today, it is present in the British India era. According to Indian Councils Act of 1861, the Viceroy of India is having exclusive power to release ordinance in the emergency situation. The same is continued into the independent India as well under Article 123 and 213 of the Constitution, whereby the President and the Governor respectively having the powers. Historically you covered, history you covered, President you covered, Governor you covered in one paragraph, like that, less words, 4 or 5 lines. Then you will write Governor's ordinance power, side heading, point wise. President's ordinance powers, point wise, with example. Then conclusion. The ordinance should be used as a last resort. It should not be used very frequently, which is recommended by 2nd Administrative Reforms Commission. It is recommended by 2nd Center State Commission recommendations also. That I will be telling accordingly. Means how to link. Write down, you will not remember. So how you have to write means this should be permanent notes. The PDF, the class notes I will be providing in the form of PDF format. You take the printout. That printout you file it, or before the class you come up with the printout. Whenever I am telling these points, you write on the top. If not, maintain a notes. So there you have to write like note. Any question on governor's ordinance or president's ordinance, I will add this sentence. Like that you have to make. In this 1.5 hour, it's like a revision. If you already had little bit knowledge, it should be like a revision. In 1.5 hour, you cannot study all these things. You will somewhere Indian Councils Act only, it will take 15-20 minutes. So in 1.5 hour, we are covering all this because I am forcing it. So it should be used as a revision also. After the class, if you read for 10 minutes, it will sink in your body. Next, Indian Councils Act of 1892. Increased non-official members in legislative councils, but maintained official majority. Non-official members means locals, Indians. Locals, Indians. Increased numbers, but official majority is maintained. But still Britishers are present in legislative council. If Britishers are present in legislative council, means the laws will be according to British. They are telling that we are adding locals. They are telling that we are adding non-official members. We are adding Indians, but that Indians number is less. Official majority is more. Obviously, the law will be according to the wish of British. First point. Provided for nomination of official members to Central Legislative Council, Provincial Legislative Council. Up to now it was only with respect to Central Legislative Council, but now onwards the nomination of non-official majority, the nomination of non-officials into Provincial Legislative Council also. Mumbai, Madras, Northwest Frontier Province, Awadh, wherever the provinces are there, wherever the legislative councils are there, presidencies, wherever the legislative councils are there also nominations started. Up to now nominations with respect to only Central Legislative Council, but from 1892 not only Central Legislative Council but also Provincial Legislative Council's nomination of non-official majority non-official started from 1892. 1861 only into Central Legislative Councils. 1861 only into Central Legislative Council. From 1892 not only Central Legislative Councils but also Provincial Legislative Council. Very important. So 1861 only Central Legislative Council, 1892 not only Central Legislative Council but also Provincial Legislative. Central Legislative Council, Provincial, both. Increases the functions of Legislative Council by providing power to discuss budget and addressing questions to executive. Now purely parliamentary body, budget discussions, posing questions to executive, started by which act? Indian Councils Act of 1892. It is becoming more parliamentarian in structure. It is becoming more parliamentarian in spirit and letter. Why? Because now we are discussing budget, now we are also posing questions to executive. It made a limited and indirect provision for use of indirect provision. Never used election, indirect provision for election. However, the word election was never used till 1892. But if elections are there, it would be good. Indirectly, they made a notion. If elections are there, then the people will become more happy. The people participation in the administration will become more good. Indirectly, they discussed about election, but the election word is not used. Indirect notation to election for the first time in which act? Indian Councils Act of 1892. Indirect notation. The process was described as nomination made on recommendation of certain bodies. The process was described as nomination made on certain bodies. So this election means what? Like nomination, certain body. For example, this is a classroom. Without election, you people are telling me, this person, Vishnu, will be the member. So Vishnu sir will be the number. Means what? I didn't conduct any election, but I am the agent of you people. Without any official elections, you are making me. So that type of nominations happened. It is almost equal to elections. I didn't do any elections, but you all people are supporting me. Uniformly you are supporting me. Elections didn't happen. But it is a form of election, but not real election. Indirect notation to elections happened, but the word election is not used. Very important. In future also. I am not telling Indian Councils Act of 1892, the word election is there. Word election is not used. But what? Indirectly a notation towards elections. How? A representative, you people are all telling, sir, you only go. So I went to the Legislative Council. So I am the representative agent of you people, but I didn't collect any elections. Indian Councils Act of 1892. What? Non-officials not only added to Central Legislative Council, but also second point. Budget discussions happened. Questions on executives were being posed. Number 3. Locals were being added. Non-officials were being added. However, official majority is maintained. Next. Indirectly, the word indirectly elections is used, but the word election is not used. Any more? 1. Increase non-official members but maintained official majority. Number 2, not only Central Legislative Council but also provincial. Number 3, increase the functions of Legislative Council by providing power of discussing budget. Number 4, it made a limited indirect provision for election. Number 5, see, this is nothing. I am telling you people, you all people send me. So I am nominated by certain bodies. So nominated by certain bodies means I am the confidence of you people, but this is not by election, by just confidence. We will tell no. You go and talk, you go and give speech. No, you go. Nomination. increased non-official members, but however, official majority maintained. Next, nomination of non-official members not only to Central Legislative Council but also. Third, increase the functions of legislative councils by discussing budget as well as posing questions to the. Next, indirect elections, but election word is not used, and that is nothing but nomination of certain bodies. 4 points. 1, 2, 3, 4. This is extension of it. Indian Councils Act of 1892. We will see some questions, previous year's questions. This is very big. Yes, this one. Previous year question this is. First MCQ of Super 50 batch. Whoever answers, I will give dairy milk chocolate. First question. If wrong, you have to give me. Above this also you have to check, correct, incorrect. For every question you have to check whether it is correct or incorrect. Why not 3? Your answer is correct, but from 1853 the revenues of India were controlled by British Parliament. It is not from 1833, it is from, but however, UPSC will think A is correct means A is correct. Asha Patel, this is correct, no? First one. It ended the trade monopoly of its blindly, it is correct. It ended the trade monopoly in tea and, except tea and China. It asserted the sovereignty of British Crown over the Indian territories held by the company. We will see. Or we will go to 1813 only. See, the Charter Act of 1813 required the company to maintain its territorial and commercial accounts separately. By this act, the company was put under greater control of British Crown, but could retain its hold on the details of administration, but it will be under the control of British Crown. When you do mock tests also, we have to go and we have to check, just we should not. So this is correct, this is correct, this is also correct, but not 1813, it is 1853. Next. C. D, very good, D. D is correct. I told you lawmaking body, why Indian will become? Indian, no chance. Answer is D. Next. These are previous years PYQs. Yeah? B, correct. The Charter Act of 1853 abolishes 1853 or 1833? 1833. Answer is B. Ragesh. Indian Councils Act. Who is called as father of portfolio system? Lord Canning. A. This tomorrow we will do 1909. Tomorrow we will do 1919. Tomorrow we will do 1935. Tomorrow we will do Indian Independence Act of 1947. Then we will do MCQs and we will go for Constitution. Salient provisions of Constitution. Okay. Today's question, yes. We will start answer rating from today. First question. Write the significance of Indian Charters Act. Write the significance of Indian Charters Act. And what are the provisions in this? And what are the provisions in this? And what are the provisions in this present in today's Constitution of India? You tell me few now. Charters. Parliamentary form of system. Inka. Parliamentary form of system. Which act? Charter Act. such from Indian charters which are continued into our Indian constitution? One is parliamentary form. Next, civil servants, yes, civil servants. Next, local representatives, correct. Law. Today also we follow the code of procedure and code of criminal procedure, code of civil procedure, which is made by the Macaulay. Today also we follow it like this. So first mention Charters Act. What is the meaning of Charter Acts? Till which time it is called as regulation, after that it is called as Act? 1833. That means what? 1793 and 1813 is called as regulation, 1833 and 1853 is called as laws. Then 1793 side heading, 1833 side heading, point wise. Here point wise. 1813 side heading, 1833 side heading, 1853 side heading. Then another big side heading. What are all the provisions which are present in today's constitution? First, parliamentary form. Second, law commission. Third, civil service. Next, local representative. Then conclusion.
Sir, expenditure and education.
Yes, that is corporate. Yes, correct. Corporate. Yes, corporate social responsibility continued. Very good. 5 points. Like that. You have to accumulate and we have to write the answer. Okay? Corporate social. Yes, Asha Patel. Correct. Thank you. You can study on the third floor and you can directly send the answer to me or to Chaitanya sir will be sitting there. He is exclusively for you only. And Chaitanya sir will be there on the last room, that is his cabin only. So you can directly meet him any point of time. He is there for you only. I will introduce him tomorrow officially. Any doubts, any problem, he is your exclusive mentor. Anyhow, I am there. Thank you.